to talk to you. So my name, as you mentioned, is Jim Fritz, and I come from RBO PrintLogistix. They are a print logistics company, as in the name. But we've also expanded into quite a few other areas. Basically, a lot in technology, promotional items, as you mentioned. We have a lot of great customers from Steeple and the Cardinals and a couple of hospitals, and so a lot of big customers, a lot of small names, things like that. But not here necessarily to talk about print, but how to actually a couple different opportunities that you can look at within your environment to actually help you save in your environments. So my background a little bit is I came from Express Scripts, and at my tenure there, I actually managed their print environment. And as you can imagine, Express Scripts is one of the Fortune 50 companies now, and have grown through the years. We did a lot of printing. I helped them to save about $15 million over a 5-year period, and basically shave that out of their printing environment. So year over year, their print costs continue to go down. And one of the very interesting things from when I started to when I ended, we actually doubled in employee size, tripled in revenue, and our paper count, how much paper we actually purchased, I was actually able to maintain an even level there. So over those 5 years. So a couple of ways the way we did that. One of the things, you can't control what you don't measure, and you can't measure what you don't control, right? So a couple of things we're going to be talking about today is how to measure different things in your environment, which is going to help you to save money, save energy, and a few other things. One of the things that I did at Express Scripts, one of the first things I had to do was get my arms around exactly how much we printed, and how much paper was being used, how much dollars was being spent, and those types of things. And again, one of the key features that I actually learned was you can't affect change unless you affect human behavior. So a lot of the things I want you to take away today is also looking at and making sure that you understand your end users and the user behavior that they do. So again, you can't measure what you can't control, and you can't control what you don't measure. So one of the things we want to look at is first off, real paper. Again, the theme of today is going green, right? So we want to look at, I'm going to actually cover about 3 areas that are kind of low-hanging fruit that you can look at to help control your environment. One of the things, this was a graph that I used. I'm not a designer or anything like that, so they're all going to be some lame graphs that you see, so forgive me. But one of the things I did at Express Scripts, this is actually one of the things that I showed people in the management team, and even though it's lame, it's very powerful. We printed enough paper to basically stack our paper usage 10.5 times from the bottom of the arch to the top of the arch. So anybody care to guess, was that weekly, monthly, or yearly?
Yearly. Hourly.
Yearly, hourly, not quite. But it was monthly. Okay, so every month we printed enough paper to stack 10.5 times to the top of the arch. Now, that's a lot of paper. All right, so think how thin a piece of paper is, start stacking it, and you're gonna see how much that is. Now again, over my tenure, we doubled employee count, we tripled our revenues, and I was able to maintain pretty much close to that same amount. So it was a pretty good feat. One of the next things, again, as we talked about human behavior, we had to really address things to the heart, right? So you necessarily don't care about a piece of paper, you print it, you need it, and you're gonna throw it away or store it or file it. But again, we need everybody to start thinking about, do you really need to print that off, okay? So back in the 80s, how many remember we were gonna be a paperless society, right? It's never happened, and by the way, paper is continually increasing as far as usage. So we started to pull out statistics, and again, so we look here, 4,200 acres of rainforest are harvested, and again, weekly, monthly, yearly. Who says weekly? Monthly? Anybody for monthly? How about hourly? All right. So, and this is according to the Environmental and Defense Agency, but hourly. So you think about 4,200 acres of tree around the world being harvested every hour. That's a lot of trees. Put that in perspective of what people understand. So you look at an acre, it's about the size of a football field. So visualize in your mind 4,200 football fields side by side in a big square, and think about how much space it's actually taken up being harvested on an hourly basis. And then when you consider that, talking about a sheet of paper, it takes 13 ounces of water to create the paper in the processing cycle. It's a lot of water being used, and now with California going in drought, Atlanta had a huge drought a while back. Droughts everywhere. You can actually start thinking that a lot of resources are being used, and sooner or later, we don't recycle or we don't start thinking about our environment, we're going to turn into a wasteland. A couple more quick facts is.
Hey, question for you. So if we recycle paper, how much water does that use to recycle this paper?
I do have a slide on that. I don't remember right off the top of my head. It is coming up, but very good. Over 1/3 of all the wood harvested in the U.S. is used to make paper and paper packaging, and then also 1/3 of our solid waste is paper and paper packaging, right? So all those trees being harvested, a lot of it goes into the waste fill. So again, I had a guy come up to me at Express Scripts and say, "Listen, it is just a sheet of paper. It doesn't matter, right? So I print what I have to print because I think I have to. So what's the big deal?" So we started going through some of these statistics with him, and then I asked him. I said, "Listen, think about the industry as a whole, and then as far as how much resources are actually being used. So what's actually done? What industries are actually involved in creating a sheet of paper?" So first you got logging, right? You got to cut them down. Then you got to ship it, right? So you ship it to the mill or storage facility before it actually gets to the mill. Then you ship it from the mill to another storage facility to create the paper, create the pencils, or create whatever else. Then you got to ship it again. Then you got delivery to retail, right? Then from retail it comes to your facilities. And then from your facility, somebody actually typically carries that piece of paper all the way to your desk or to your printer or something like that. So there's a huge amount of not only just the industry itself, but then you got all the labor that's involved in each one of those industries. So if you look at the labor involved, so how many people are involved in the sheet of paper from start to finish? And quite frankly, if you think about it, how many people, what's involved in all industry from start to finish? In Missouri alone, you've got about 300 logging companies and 30 sawmills, just in Missouri. So you start calculating that worldwide, and obviously it's definitely a huge industry. But when you start thinking about the industry and you start thinking about how much gas, diesel, water, electric is all involved, right, in each one of these, again, just think how many times a product is shipped. That's a lot of gas, a lot of diesel. And then finally, the most important thing that really we need to start thinking about is how many species of animal or insect are displaced with 4,200 acres being chopped down every hour. So this in and of itself is a really big thing to start thinking about is when you are thinking about printing off a piece of paper. So I went through these things a lot of times with different events at Express Scripts, and you start getting people start thinking about printing and whether they need to print or not. But then they start thinking about other things, right? They start thinking about, okay, well, do I really need to print this at home? Do I really you know, we've had different conversations in the past about all the junk mail we've gotten, right? And a lot of times, you know, that's gone down significantly, but it's still there quite a bit. So, he came back to me a couple weeks, you know, a couple months later, or whatever like that. We passed in the bathroom and said, you know what? Started thinking about everything that you said about all the different things about paper, and now I'm even thinking about how many paper towels I pull out of the paper towel dispenser, right, when I dry my hands, right? So instead of just grabbing a handful or 6 or 7, you just need 1 or 2 to really dry your hands. You know, shake them first. So, all right. One of the other things about human behavior, and let's by show of hands, 10 years ago, how many of y'all recycled?
10 years ago.
All right, how about 15 years ago then? All right, okay, good. We got 2 people that actually recycled 15 years ago. Good job. Now, 15 years ago, recycling was a pain in the butt, right? Right? Everybody agree? Even 10 years ago. I think it was only 5 years ago that my municipality actually started doing, you know, the recycling. So what made it a pain, right? You had to, first off, you had to put space aside in your garage, right? Then you had to put your aluminum cans over here, you had to put your paper over here, your cardboard over here, and I don't even think they did plastics back then, right? Because nobody thought about that yet. But at the end of the day, so you have 4 different things, and then after you get so much smell in your garage, then you want to actually take all that, throw it in the back of your trunk, and then find the different recycling centers, right? It's a real pain in the butt. That's why we only had 2 people actually doing it, right? So how many people recycle now? Well, what's wrong with you 3?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, okay. So, let's see some hands.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody recycles now, right? Why?
Single source.
Single source, right? And municipalities give you a nice little trash can, you throw everything in there. So now you just have to do, you separate your trash and then you separate your recycling. It's a beautiful thing. So I contend that yes, it's single source and the municipalities do it for you, but the only reason they can do it for you is because of technology on the back end, right? So again, technology allows you to measure, control, and provide ease of use and ease of ways to do things. So keep that in mind again as we go through some different things. More paper facts. Those are just how many sheets of paper. It helps you add up how much you use on an annual basis, how many trees you can kill. Here's our water production. And again, this is straight copy paper. We'll get to the recycled paper in just a minute. But one of the other things we actually talked to my users about was how much does it actually cost for each sheet of paper that you print and throw away. From the Environmental Agency, it says it's about 6 cents. I want to show you one more slide, which who agrees? Who's the best printer out there, or has the most printers? I would say. Who's well renowned for printers? HP. All right, so HP got the LaserJet. They did a study. They did a comprehensive study of how much it actually costs to create a sheet of paper, and this really nobody thinks about as far as what it really costs. Right up here at the top, the visible hard cost, 5 to 7 cents. That's where we get to 6 cents per sheet of paper. And that's what everybody really sees, right? So you get your hardware, piece of paper, ink, maintenance, electricity. People can't account for that. They can get their hands around that. At Express Scripts, even when I did all my presentations and managements, I actually used 3 cents, right? Makes it more real. It's not so far out there. But at the same time, I told them about all this because all this is true to a certain extent, especially in a large organization. You have IS support, infrastructure, and administration accounting for another 15% of the overall cost. You've got to have people that manage your servers. You have people that install the cables, install the electricity, your port switches, manage those servers, and so on and so forth. So there is cost associated with that. It's all behind the scenes, and most of us don't see it when we print, but there is cost associated to it. Then you have your time, right? The end user time. And what does it cost for that end user to create that document, to print that document, to manage that document, to stand at the copier and staple it all together, and so on and so forth. So there's a huge cost associated with that. And let me give you a quick analogy on that one too, as far as end user time and cost. We were moving into one of our new facilities, and you know, as the print czar, I had to manage all the printers and things like that too. So we had a particular group that had, each one of them had a printer on their desk, right? Everybody knows a printer on your desk is inefficient and wasteful, but they had it there for a business reason. So, and this was in my early years, and so my goal at that point in time was to get rid of all the personal printers and, you know, drive everybody to a couple of multifunction printers. So my goal at the time was, you know, build up our ratio. We had a 2-to-1 employee to printer ratio, and I had to get it higher than that. And you can imagine that for a lot of people at Express Scripts. But, so we moved in a new building. This particular department was about 30 people, 25, 30 people. And we drove everybody to 2 multifunction devices. I did count the volume, so I made sure it could handle the volume and all that kind of stuff. So everybody was happy, right? Everybody except who? The end users, right? The end users were used to just reaching over here, grabbing it, so on and so forth. But we gave them new technology. We gave them pool printing, so they didn't have to wait in line necessarily, and they didn't have to shuffle through everybody else's papers to make sure they got theirs. So, you know, they were willing to work with it at the beginning. About a week later, management comes to me and said, listen, this is not working. We need new printers. Okay, or more printers. So I gave them more printers. My ratios were still good, so I was okay. Everybody was still, you know, semi-happy. Come back another week later, and you know, they're still complaining. Management says we got to have all the printers back on the desk, right? So guess what? I lose. What? So, and this is again goes back to the end user time, end user behavior. I talked to the management. And remember, she just got promoted, so she didn't really know what the end users were doing. All she knew was that they were complaining. Okay. So I stepped back and I talked to the users. All right, so what's the user's problem? Well, the user needs to print out this piece of paper so that they can enter data into a database. Okay, makes sense. So what is the process that they do? The client calls on the phone, they pull up a database, pull up all the data on the client, right? And then, well, they can't order from this particular database or do whatever the client needs. They've got to go over to this other database and put all the data in there so they can order whatever the client needs. But they have this nice, really cool 15-inch CRT screen still on the desk, right? So there's no desktop real estate, so you put the two side by side, right? That's the first thing somebody think of. It's like, well, have they ever heard of dual screen technology? Let's put 2 screens up. That's like, wow. They thought they never heard of it, so they thought it was the greatest thing on sliced bread. Management says, wow, that's cool, but I got no budget for it, right? So I said, okay, listen, I own the print, you guys are printing so much, and I'm not giving you any more printers, so therefore, let's do the analysis, let's measure, let's control, let's see what we can do. And at the end of the day, I was able to pay for everybody to get dual screens on their desk, out of my budget, and I still saved a ton of money. Right? So, and I became, you know, the hero of the day, which is really great. Everybody loved me. But the fact of the matter is, and you know, one of the things we just, you got to understand your users. You got to understand what the needs are, and then understand what their behavior is before you can actually. When we talk about control, everybody hates being controlled, right? But they like to be more efficient. They really do want. Most of your users do want to be more efficient. This other piece, a very big part here, has to do with document storage, management, file retrieval, and things like that. Again, in Express Scripts, you got Iron Mountain, just huge amount of costs and stuff like that. Stuff you got to keep for 7 years. And by the way, key point that if you're in a litigious environment necessarily, or if you have a policy that says you have to keep your documents for 7 years, then you have to keep your documents for 7 years. If you have a policy that says you only need to keep it for 1 year, keep it for 1 year and make sure you get rid of it. Same way with your emails, right? So a couple people, you know, recently you hear about people getting busted from an email that they wrote, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, right? So a lot of people, and we went through this document management policy situation in Express Scripts. If we had a policy that said we keep our emails infinitely, then you are liable for those emails infinitely. If we have a policy that says all emails are deleted after a year, right, as far as archived and things like that, then you're not liable, obviously, for those emails after they're not archived. So keep that in mind. Okay. So that's really it on paper. You know, again, there's a huge environment associated to it. So let's talk about toner and ink. This is the second thing we want to talk about is kind of some low-hanging fruit. Again, each laser cartridge actually adds 2.5 million or 2.5 pounds into the landfill. Each cartridge takes up to 1,000 years to compose. It's that hard plastic. It takes forever. It takes a lot of oil to actually create in the first place. As we know, it takes petroleum to create the plastics, and then a lot of CO2 is emitted during the production. So that's about toner. Not a whole lot to say about that. Ink, I'm sure you've heard it, is a very expensive product. They love to give away the cheap printers and sell you the very expensive ink. How many of you have actually looked at just buying a new printer because you didn't want to replace all the ink cartridges? Right? Okay, so keep that in mind too, and we can help out with that. Again, technology will help. So, third thing we're going to talk about in the area of helping with technology is PC power. PC energy is a lot, right? So in the world, so laptops are a little bit different, but in your environments where you have desktops and monitors, things on all the time, obviously it takes a lot of energy to run that. So in the overall energy costs, right? So you got 75% building and lighting and all that kind of stuff. IT actually typically will account for 25% of your energy costs. And of that IT energy costs, your laptops and monitors are about 31%, and your printers are about 16%, right? Because again, they're on all the time, they're always running. So they really account for almost 50% of your IT energy spent, okay? A lot of people focus right here on your data center, telecom areas, things like that, but that's a lower percent, right? And there's not a whole lot you can do except for buy more, better, faster servers, you know, things like that. You can do the virtual devices and things like that. But again, so this is where your real power is being used up. So this is what we're going to help you to address. We'll talk about that. And another thing, as far as I won't even go there. Okay, so this is just a chart to show you that energy is actually increasing and not decreasing. So we need to start looking at that. So what can we do, right? And this is where we're going to get into real quick bit of recycling. But what can we do? Obviously, paper. Don't print, right? So if you don't have to print, don't print. If you don't have to have that piece of paper, that's the obviously cheapest, best way to save money. And then we're gonna, recycle. So here, recycling about 1 ton of paper, it's gonna save 17 trees. And if we multiply it out, 15,000 pounds of paper, saves about 125 trees. It saves almost 2,000 gallons of oil. It saves in landfill space. Creates, it saves that much electricity. And it saves 52,000 gallons of water. Now, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't know how much it actually creates to do that, but it does say it saves. Okay. So, recycling is good. The next thing, though, and this is what we've been talking about as far as Express Scripts, we need to manage our print. We need to start controlling it, and we need to look at ways to reduce that print. We do that in a couple of ways. First, we talk about looking at your overall print in a holistic approach. Okay, and you've heard of managed print services. So most managed print service providers just look at just the office space. Okay, they want to sell you better, faster equipment. Excuse me. At a lower cost per page. But we want to take that a step further, and I'm going to show you another slide here in a minute. We want to look at your implant. So for schools, hospitals, things like that, they have their own production, in-house production facilities. Express Scripts did, and you know that's a huge cost benefit. And then we also look at the commercial side of the world, where everything that you're farming out, you know, brochures that are created, the folders and things like that. And what we like to see, or what we do, and a lot of times we do see, is a lot of this print. If you already have an production implant, you already have the capital invested, you have the human resources already there, and typically a lot of times we find that they're sitting on their thumbs, and you know, you're wasting money and capital. So there's a lot of times we find a lot of the commercial stuff can be brought in-house at a cheaper rate, and then a lot of the office stuff can also be brought in-house to save the time and the efforts of the people over here. Now what we also find, and I found this at Express Scripts, I had a lady who was standing at one of our color copiers, and I started seeing her numbers were just going up and up and up and up. She's standing, and then one day I just found her standing there and doing stapling. It's like, what are you doing? She goes, oh, I'm doing all these sheets or whatever. And I said, why? Because you know we have a production plant right down the 2 floors below you. They can do all that for you. Well, that costs me money. Right? Because typically in-house production charges back, and the copiers, right? Everybody thinks that copying is free. All right. Well, little did she know, we didn't charge those back in the production plant. So she could have saved herself a lot of time, a lot of effort. She was spending 4 or 5 hours every week running all these presentation packages, which you could have just had these guys do it. So we look at those kind of things and we capture that, and we try to again educate the end user on the best devices to use. So we talked real quick, MPS define. We like to call those guys the simple play, right? Newer, faster, better, cheaper equipment. Of course, they want to sell it to you, and they want you to replace everything you have, get all new stuff. Huge capital investment. They want to standardize and tell you it's a lower cost per page. Again, we had another client that we currently just recently looked at. They took this approach, and then they let us look at their contracts. That's one of the things we do is contract analysis and things. They bought all new equipment for a particular building that they had, and so we started looking at the contracts, and we started looking at how many pages were actually printed on the devices that they purchased, right? So it's a 5-year lease, so you know, not that big a deal as far as cost goes. It's 5 years. It's a lease on a printer. It's going to go obsolete in a year. But that's beside the point. But then you started looking at the utilization, right? So how many pages were printed on the thing? So break it down, total cost per page, they were paying about $30 a page, right? Why? Because they had a lease that they're paying on the monthly. They were printing maybe 100 pages on the thing. So you break down their monthly lease and the amount of pages. So you print 1 or 2 or 10. So you want to look at utilization. You want to make sure you're actually getting what you paid for. It's like buying a Ferrari and sticking it in your garage and never using it. By the way, we do not sell hardware or toner or services, the maintenance services. What we do is look at analytics, and we do what we call next generation NPS, managed print services. So we look at user and document workflow, document security. This was used at Express Scripts, right? So you can only imagine HIPAA violations out the wazoo. HIPAA violations are very, very expensive. So we look at document security. Business process optimization, IT services, commercial production. Again, we talked about that. We also have promotional items that we look at. And then, you know, obviously now, mobile and remote printing, most of the times, offices are not set up to receive your mobile device, right? you can get onto the network, but you sure can't print. And there are certain instances where you need to print. So we help get that all set up for you. We say that as far as savings and managing, that's really 10% of the environment. This is really where the bread and butter is as far as on how to manage your environment. In a standard simple play, which most OEMs and vendors do, current state, you do have a significant amount of savings right here in this particular state. But again, all they're doing is selling you equipment and maintenance, so there's no control. So what ends up happening is how many people have bad habits, you get better for a week or two, and then you go back to your bad habits, okay? Right after the new year, that's the way it always happens, after the new year. So anyway, simple MPS, typically your costs are going to continue to go up, and what we look at with our next generation MPS products and ability to control and manage, help the and train the end users, we look at driving out costs. All right, so how do we do that? We have a toolbox. In our toolbox, the first one we look at is it's a product called Beacon, and we help you to understand your device environment. With the device environment, we help you to understand basically the overall cost. This is a dashboard that's live and actionable. You guys can look at it. As again, like I said, it's live. It's updated every 15 minutes. You look at cost and volume, utilization, composition, the effective life of your fleet, right? So whether it's a short life or a long life expectancy. And then again, what we talk about here as far as your cost per page, you need to look at your utilization of devices. Then there's a little bit of environmental information down here on the screen. Then we want to help you to understand your end user environment at the same time. Again, we need to find out who is printing 10,000 pages of emails on a daily basis, right? And then we go after them and we look at their business process and say, why are you printing off all your emails? I love to print my emails. Why? I have no real reason. Because I don't like technology. I don't know. But the other problem with the emails, right? So how many times do you just want that last page and you get all the entire 10 pages worth of crap that you just throw away, right? So interesting statistic.
Recycle.
I actually saved mine in a folder.
All of the 10 pages of...
I'm guilty. I print off emails and then I make folders and then I and then I save them because
Okay, everybody like partial.
Judging.
I'm a hoarder. I know.
She's a hoarder. But we look at those outliers, right? We're going to find her and we're going to come talk to her. So why do you print off all your emails? So what is the business purpose, right? So obviously a lot of people like to archive, absolutely, right? And we have systems for archiving. So anyway, we look at those outliers. We can do it by person, we can do it by product, we can do it by device and application, right? So again, who's printing off all those emails? Why is it printing them off? Things like that. So we want to help you understand that. And this is one of the ways, again, we help you to measure and control the environment. And by doing so, you can save energy. So what? Save money. So next one is energy. So what can we do about energy? PC power, right? So how many people have a policy in their or campaign, I should say, where they ask you to turn off your PCs? Nobody. Why? What's the main reason you don't want to turn off your PC at night? Updates, right? IT hates it when somebody actually tries to, put a campaign that says, please turn off your PCs. And the other thing is not going to ask you to turn off your PC, but unless I go around and make sure you turned off your PC, nobody's ever going to know whether you turned off your PC, right? So, again, using very cool technology, we have the power to manage PCs using the power management tool. So with the power management tool, we can centrally look at and manage, all your devices that are on the network, and we can look at how they're being utilized, right? So we, with our PC Power Manager tool, we look at click rate, mouse movement, hard drive activity, internet activity, and any other type of activity that causes CPU utilization. So you can see in a standard environment, right up here, the thing's constantly on, right? You see these little dips are actually a little bit of utilization. We typically find that a standard desktop is on 24 hours a day and utilized about 15% of that day, right? So there's a whole lot in that space that can be, you can save a lot of energy. We see here, we introduced two very simple policies, right? One is we shut the thing down at 5 o'clock, put it to sleep. Actually, we don't shut it down, we put it to sleep, and I'll tell you why that is just in a minute. And then we wake it back up at 7 o'clock, right? So that it's ready and available for the end user. So as soon as they walk in, they can log in, and they really don't know the difference, right? So one of the other things we talked about as far as human behavior is we need to make sure that we don't inhibit or negatively affect the end users no matter whatever we do. If you negatively affect an end user, kind of what she was talking about on the green thing, right? We reduce productivity, right? Because they get all upset, they think you're controlling them and things like that. So all this is done in the background. Typically, the end user doesn't even know what's going on. Typically, what we also find is monitors go to sleep, right? Everybody knows that the monitor goes to sleep. Typically, so it goes black, so everybody knows to sleep. As soon as you move your mouse, the monitor wakes back up, right? It's the same situation with putting your PC to sleep. Typically, the end user doesn't know the difference between moving the mouse, the monitor to sleep, and the PC to sleep, or just the monitor to sleep. So, here's how we affect IT, right? So these little spikes here, IT typically has a patching routine, right? On say Tuesday night at midnight. So what we could do is not only we can run a policy that wakes every PC and make sure that every PC is awake at midnight, and then we can put that PC back to sleep again at 1 o'clock in the morning, or however long the patches take. Okay, so we can run two policies. Again, wake and sleep night and day, and then another policy for IT to wake and to make sure that the product is awake during the patching cycle. Now, again, Verdina's been in the business for since 2001. They're one of the ones that actually helped to create this particular enterprise space. So they're very familiar with what's going on here. Over the years, they found that typical patching routines are about 76 or 75 to 76% efficient first time out. And with our product, waking up the PCs, making sure everything's awake, they're now up to 95 to 98% efficiency rates first time out. So in hospitals, people like Express Scripts, things like that, where we have huge, we got to make sure everything's patched and up to date. That's huge, right? Talked to one particular company that says, yeah, if they've got 2 weeks to meet and make sure that everything's patched the way it's supposed to be. And after that 76 is done, they basically have to manually go to the remaining 25 or so percent that's not, that they weren't able to remotely get to. So it's a huge labor savings. That being said, like I mentioned, everything's brought back to a centralized server. We've got collection, we centrally control it, set your policies and things like that. We've got dashboards out the wazoo, over 30 different reports that help you manage and control that. The other beauty about this is RBO is a trade, Ameren Trade Ally partner, which you're going to hear a little bit more about later. But we will actually do all the paperwork for you, do all the installation for you as far as the product goes, and Ameren's actually going to rebate a majority of the cost of the software and the services. So they'll talk about their incentive program a little bit later. And I did say the R word, which is bad. Strike that from your memory. So it's an incentive. Okay. All right. So that's enough about that. It is a very simple product to install. is one of the simpler products. It's no different than installing Microsoft Word or anything like other application onto your desktops. Whoops. And I just want to give you a quick case study about the PC Power. One of the clients that we were actually talking to a while back, you know, we just got through talking to them about PC Power and the beauty of it. And then they came back and said, hey, you know what? Hey, look what we just did. We just installed 6 solar panels, or solar panels on 6 buildings, right? Big solar panel project, which is great. I'm not against solar panels. They created 180 kilowatts per year, and they had a 25-year projected savings of a little over $500,000. Pretty good, right? It took 600 panels, right, to do all this. So there's a lot of real estate taken up, and I think a lot of work to be done to make sure that these things don't blow off. And I'm not sure that solar panels last a lifetime. Now, so I'm not sure what the estimated ROI is, okay, because I don't know what it costs and all that kind of stuff. But I will tell you with power management, and I'm not knocking solar. Solar's great. I want it for my own house. But as far as the project goes for PC Power Management, the same particular facility had almost 7,500 PCs, and we projected that they had a 25-year projected savings of $1.5 million. Okay? Real estate requirement. Real estate is expensive, whether it's a rooftop or in here, right? So real estate is expensive, but we had 0 real estate costs, and our estimated ROI is less than 9 months. And it's even a little bit better than that if with the annual rebates. So, and again, a lot of centralized control. Say it again. Slap me. Lori's gonna slap me. It's center. Forgive me. And we have control, right? So we can control and manage, and users doesn't even know about it. Quick ROI. All right. 2 more things before I finish up, and I apologize. So what can we do about toner? First thing is purchase remanufactured, right? So we talked about every new cartridge, goes going in the landfill. So as long as we can recycle it, typically you can the remanufacturers can remanufacture or recycle those up to 5 times, right? So we can save that amount of landfill before they start degrading. So the second thing is use the toner management software. Oh, by the way, as far as remanufactured, they're also about half the price, right, of a standard OEM. So depending on which product you are, how old your toner is, could even be a third to a fourth of the price of the standard OEM. So you want to look at the remanufactured. Nowadays, the remanufacturers are, they're quality product. You very rarely hear about them blowing up in your PC anymore and destroying your PC. And then most of the providers that actually do give you the remanufacturers will also cover the PC if they do blow up in there. Just that's the thing. So let's look at the toner management tool. And again, measure, control. So my question to you is, if you continue to actually print off all those emails, right, or the internet stuff, why would you actually want to print that off at 100% toner laydown, okay? Or if you are doing a proof for your PowerPoint, you want to see how it looks and you just want to see it side by side, and you're not going to present it to anybody, again, why do it at 100% color or 100% laydown of toner? So we have color technology, we have technology, and actually there's a free CD on the back of the area there I want everybody to take home. You register, you get a 45-day trial of it, so you can test it out, see how you like it. It's great. It will work on multiple PCs. This is the same key that you get. You can put it on everybody in your office, give it to your IT folks. But the fact of the matter is, do you really need 100% color coverage for an email, okay? Or for, like I said, that proof PowerPoint or anything like that? If you're just going to file it, do you really even need it to be 25%? I guarantee you that if I give you, especially with our technology, if I give you a sheet across the paper and it's at a 25% reduction, you're not going to know the difference unless you lay it against this one, right? So if you lay the two side by side, you're going to see a difference. But the naked eye, you're not going to know the difference, right? There is basically a 10% differential even between two printers. Okay? So again, we're accustomed to never seeing 100% laid out anyway. All right. So why not extend the life of your toner cartridges and your ink cartridges by 25%? Right? Again, if you're not presenting to a client, you really need 100% laid out. Do you really need even 25 or 50, right? So, but what our software gives you, for instance, we can set a policy. In your organization, all email is going to be automatically printed at 75%. All all Word documents can be set at 50%. You know, whatever you want to do, you can set the policy. You can set you can set it by application. You can set it by user group if you wanted to, or you can set it by device. Okay, so different ways you can set it. You can set it centrally. Again, you get all that reporting coming back to you, so you know exactly who's saving, who's not saving. The other beauty of this is, again, we don't want to impact the end user. I don't really know if you need 75% or 100%, right? So what I also give you, we can set the policy that the Outlook will come up to this, but let's say for whatever reason you really want to print that off, it's got a lot of pretty graphics on it, you want to set it at 25%. This pop-up comes up, you can move the slide bar yourself, okay? So we give the control to the user. Because again, I don't know, you'd rather not set a policy 100% across the board and, you know, piss off 95% of your people, right? So, we give you the option to change it, because you know what you need to print, how you need to print it, what it needs to look like. So, again, the CD's in the back, please take one home, check it out. And you can use it at home too, so use it in the office and at home. Conclusion, again, hopefully I gave you 3 different, quick low-hanging fruits to kind of go after. What we really like to come back and work with you on is, honestly, we start out with the PC Power because the majority of the cost is, like I said, covered by the incentives. And then we can help you to roll those energy savings, cost savings initiatives into these other, couple of products. Again, toner saver, extends the life of your products. If you're buying 10 cartridges now, you may only need to buy, 5 cartridges next year. Okay, so it's all about rolling, the dollars into the next initiative or project. RBO PrintLogistix can help you with anything holistically involving print, whether it's commercial, promotional products, and we're also into web to print. We have some other technologies that we can help you out with too. So again, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for letting me speak.